There are very few people like that. And, for us to have shared some of our, times with him, I think that those are memories that we're going to cherish forever. So just to say that, Vivek, we from the love you, we from Savera love you, we from O2 love you, and you'll always remain in our hearts. And for someone so young, he has made such a fantastic difference to the world around him, I think he's taught us that life is only about love and kindness and nothing else. So love you, Vivek. Sujata, can we have just a few seconds of silence from everyone before we move on to the meeting, please?
Please unmute yourself, Nina.
Sujata, would you have the last video that he made for us about 3 days back for Rati? Can you play it for us?
I'm going to try to play it because I couldn't download it. So just try.
Vivek could never say no to the 5 of us. He would always be there at our car rallies, our Duchess Utsavs, and we would meet him in the gym. He would be at all our events. So recently when I approached him about 3 days back for a video to wish Rati, this is what he has said. I hope we can play it for him.
Not being able to play it.
Voice is not heard. Rati, Sujata, voice is not heard. Audio is not there.
Sorry, that's all I could play.
Okay, Sujata, what we will do is we will post it in our respective groups afterwards at the end of today. So,
Once a sec. Sorry, girls, I can't get back to the screen.
Sujata, go ahead. We'll post the video later in our individual groups later because I want everyone to be able to share this experience with us.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Garyali ma'am. Always a pleasure to interact with you. Like I said, you're also to me an embodiment of love and kindness. So welcome you, ma'am, to the meeting. And of course, Pramila, we look up to you and looking forward to a fantastic meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. Yes, Anu?
Yeah. Good morning, members, and a very warm welcome to Garyali ma'am for today's meeting. And of course, Nina, the news of Vivek was very heartbreaking because he was loved by all of us. So once again, pranams to him. Now, before we introduce our ma'am, in a formal introduction to ma'am, we will introduce Pramila. So Pramila Rajan is a proud army wife with double postgraduate degrees in education and English, besides a degree in biology, an educator and administrator for over 37 years. She has been a founder principal in schools at India and the UAE. An avid reader, an intrepid traveler, she is passionate about art, theater, and drama, literature, history, and spirituality. She is a registered homeopath. A keen blogger, her pursuits have culminated in her book of memoirs, 80 Wondrous Years, which was published a few months back. A member of the Duchess Club since 2.5 years, she is now associated along with Aparna Bubna with our book club, Page Turners at Duchess. That is Pramila Rajan for all of you. Over to you, Aparna, for the formal introduction of Garyali ma'am.
Thank you, Anu, and heartfelt condolences for Mr. Vivek. Ms. Garyali was an IS officer in 1972 when I was still in the pram. So it's an honor and privilege to introduce her. Her accomplishments and achievements can be a biography by itself. She was a principal secretary to both the Excellency Governor of Tamil Nadu and Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Her zest for education got her to study poverty alleviation at University of Sussex and women's empowerment at the Queen Elizabeth House of Oxford University. She is known as the mother of self-help groups of women and has written 5 books on women empowerment. She was a pioneer in starting the cancer screening program for women in 1987. She has revived the dying folk and Therukothai by extended livelihood loans to artists. She was the backbone to get back dance to the temples that was banned from the British period. She sent cultural delegations overseas to teach music and promote Tamil folk traditions. Because of her, for the first time, Indian sculptors and dancers participated in the Snow Festival in Japan. She is the advisor at Saraswati Educational Cultural Charitable Trust. It's a personal initiative to conduct Vasant Utsav, a 12-day dance festival for the last 16 years. She has received many awards and distinctions. To mention a few are the NABARD Award for Excellence in Credit Linkage to Self-Help Groups, Rotary India Award for Highest Humanitarian Service to the country, Maharshi Karve Prize for standing first in the University of Delhi in Masters in Social Work 1972, and many, many more. Ms. Garyali is unstoppable. We are looking forward to many more of her publications, latest being Hindu Way of Life. So without further ado, let me hand over the forum to the 2 women who are living examples of the saying, age is just a number. Get up and be willing to leave a mark. So here it is to Ms. Pramila Rajan and Ms. Garyali.
Thank you.
Please, Anu.
Thank you, Aparna.
Sujata, should I start?
Yes, kindly start.
First of all, good morning to everyone. And more than anything else, I would like to say Om Sat Gati, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti to the departed soul and prayers for his eternal Shanti. On this somber note, I deem it an honor to be able to discuss the book, Kashmir, the Land of Kashyapa, which Madam C.K. Garyali has so beautifully written. At the outset, it's a very mind-blowing account of the travails the Kashmiri Pandits have undergone since the 14th century. Every fellow Indian must empathize, understand, and know about it. That is what the book seeks to convey. I would like all the members to unmute themselves just for a second and give an ovation of an applause to this great effort, for there is so much to glean from our book that leaves the reader with an awakened reckoning, an undertone of spirituality and of our glorious Vedantic heritage. Generally, an ovation is given at the end of the session. I chose to do it at the beginning so that the mood is set to understand what travails you people have undergone. You're a sensitive writer and an emotional person. So my first question would be, can one write a book if one is not emotionally connected with the narrative?
I think you have to be emotionally connected, even if you are writing an academic book or a research book. You have passion for that particular subject, you have passion for that particular research. But if you are asking me about this book, definitely it was a very, very emotional and passionate thing for me, because I have roots in Kashmir and I worked here. But when these things happened, particularly in 1990, when 5 lakh people had to leave, it really hurt me, because I was so much aware I could not do anything for them. And that is one of the reasons that I had to do something for them. And after my retirement, I started working with refugees who are migrants who are in refugee camps. And
We'll come to that later, Chandrakanta ji. May I call you Chandrakanta ji instead of Garyali all the time?
you can call me Chandra.
The course of your book reflects your personal journey, no doubt. Was this an energizing effect or an exhausting effect?
Initially, I thought I have to do something for this community. And one thing was I wanted to document the culture, because it's a very, very ancient culture. According to us, 5,000-year-old culture. So I started with documenting culture, and it was good. And when came to write a chapter on history, it started becoming very painful after 14th century. Till 14th century, it was a Hindu Kashmir, the land of Kashyapa, where great achievements. Out of 26 treaties in Sanskrit, 24 were written in Kashmir. The great schools of astrology, the medicine, the poetry, the drama. In fact, the oldest mention of Bharatanatyam is coming from Martan temple in 6th century. Before it was, there's no mention of any other temple in India as old as that. So you can see, we always think the Bharatanatyam is South Indian, but oldest mention is from Kashmir. So this was really a very important thing for me. But I wanted to do something, and I wanted to, and when I finished writing the book, I was writing the last chapter when the atrocities again started, especially starting from the 1931, the 1947, and then 1990. And I could not write anymore. I'm telling you, for 1.5 years, book was there sitting on the last 10th chapter.
Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I mean, it has been I shouldn't have asked this question and made you feel and recall the misery that you underwent. But nevertheless, your book has surfaced into a glorious account. Probably that exhaustion energized you further into making this beautiful book. Now, your book has got the historical perspectives and the political scenario of those times. But alongside, there is a humanitarian aspect. Could you comment on that particular part?
Yes, because book is historical, because when we are telling story of people, we have to put it in a historical perspective. And I have, starting from when Kashyapa Rishi carved the valley out of a lake. Now, that is a geographical phenomena which has happened, whether it was, Kashyapa did it by his engineering or by his spiritual power, that is a matter of discussion. But it was a lake which was drained out of by cutting the forest, cutting the mountain, and a beautiful valley emerged. And then lovely people were brought to settle down there to do reading, writing, Adhyan, Manan, Chintan, and so on. So this is, while telling the story, I have to tell about the people as it developed, how they came down, what were our families like. So when we're talking about society, we're talking about our families, how they were eating, how they were, their customs, what were their customs, and so on. And so there's a personal thing there.
Now, in your book, you have clarified that Kashmir is actually Srinagar and not Jammu. And that the lion's share of temples was located in Srinagar and in Anantnag. Now, you also said that the river Jhelum is supposed to be the Vitasta and is an immanent form of the goddess Parvati, while the chinars of Kashmir, the maples of Srinagar, are supposed to be the manifested forms of Devi Bhavani. Now, could you agree that there is a consciousness of spirituality that is creating the sacredness. Do share your views on the sacred geography of the Himalayas that is interwoven in the stories of this particular book.
See, Himalaya is supposed to be very sacred place, and in that Himalayas, Kashmir is supposed to be very beautiful and sacred, according to the old poets, Kalidas and others. They have written like that. And within that, the valley of Kashmir is most beautiful. Now, the valley was created out of a lake which was called Satisar. When Shiva did his dance with the dead Sati, the torso of the Sati fell there and the lake was created. That is why it was called Satisar, the lake of the Sati. You can imagine the valley is carved out of the body of Sati. So it is so sacred place. Similarly, the Hari Parvat was created by the Parvati by throwing a pebble on a demon who was the people. And so this mountain which is there, it is creation of the goddess Parvati. So the whole, the mountain is Mount Har Mahadev mountain. So everything is very sacred. The river is like Ganges. Vitasta is supposed to be Parvati taking the form of water, because you see when Kashyapa prayed to all the goddesses and told them to take the form of river and flow in Kashmir to give the gift of water. So both Parvati came and Lakshmi also came. Lakshmi is a tributary called Vishakha. So Vishakha also flows there, Chandrabhaga also flows there, and Vitasta flows there. And Vitasta is worshipped like Ganges. We also worship. We have a festival like we do Kaveri worship in South. We do Vitasta worship in Kashmir.
Oh, that leads me on to your next question. Now, we've only heard about Mohenjo-daro and Harappa being the river valley civilizations, and Srinagar was never discussed. From your answer, it appears that Srinagar is veritably housed on a lot of rivers which contribute to its well-being and its greatness. Now, would you like to say something about the contribution of the river Vitasta to the entire environment of Srinagar?
Yes. You see, we should not compare Mohenjo-daro and all that because they're dead. These are the dead civilizations. So we can compare with Varanasi. Srinagar can be compared with Varanasi. These are the living cities. Kanchipuram, Srinagar, Varanasi, even Mylapore for that matter. They're all mentioned in very ancient texts, more than 3,000-year-old texts. 2,500 years Tiruvallur lived in Mylapore. So we know definitely it was existing then. So these are the living cities. They were living cultures, living civilizations. So they're not dead. So they're still there. Now, that's one part. And what was the second part of question you wanted to ask me?
Now, I just said that Srinagar seems to be blessed with so much of water all around.
Yeah.
Would you care to say that it is the development of Srinagar is based on the development of the river itself?
Because this valley is got this beautiful river which takes water from Indus and other tributaries also, and it is very sacred. It is worshipped. All the major temples are on the river banks. All the major cities. Srinagar itself is on both sides of the river and connected with 8 beautiful bridges. So
yeah, you call them Kadal, don't you?
We call them Kadal.
Kadal. Actually, Kadal means sea in Tamil.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at the connection between water, sea, and the bridge. It's amazing how there is a union of languages also have a uniform code, as it were. Now, the modern places of interest in and around Srinagar, like Chashme Shahi and Sahibi, were of great delight to the Mughals. Would you highlight the traditional folklore associated with them?
See, Chashme Shahi means the royal springs. The springs were existing there, and Mughals made a garden there. But actually, before even Mughals also, there was a saint, woman saint called Rupa Bhavani, ashram there, and because saints are called sahibs also. So it was Chashme Sahibi. And later, when Mughals saw the place and they were impressed and they made a garden there, they named it slightly changed it to Chashma Shahi.
I see.
There is a place there nearby called Pari Mahal, the old beautiful palace structure. And Dara Shikoh, the brother of Aurangzeb, used to study there with the Kashmiri Pandits. He was very much interested in scholarship, Sanskrit, philosophy, astrology, and so on, astronomy. So he used to work there. It is said that there is also a belief that, though it is not historically, it's controversial, that Dara Shikoh was murdered by Aurangzeb in Pari Mahal.
Oh,
Or he has the plot. But that was a favorite place of Dara Shikoh. And if Aurangzeb had not killed him, and he would have become the king,
ruler.
then the history of India would have been different.
Yes. Now, your book also tells us about the early legends of the creation of Hari Parvat, which is almost like a fairy tale. Could you enlighten the significance of Devi Sharika's role in that?
See, Devi Sharika is no one but Parvati. So, in the Sati Sat, which I told you, the valley was a lake. A monster lived in that lake. It was called Jalodabhava, the monster of the lake. And he was given a boon by Brahma that as long as he's underwater, nobody can kill him. So he was very happy, and he was going on eating people and doing all kinds of things. So once Kashyap Rishi reached there, people appealed to him, please save us out of this Jalodabhava. Then Kashyap Rishi did tapasya for many years, got the boon from
Devi.
Shiva, and then with the help of Shiva, invoked the help of Vishnu, with the help of Vishnu, and so on, they drained the water out. Actually, there is a place where you can see the cut in the mountain from where water would have been drained out. But according to legend, in spite of draining the water, there were some little potholes where the Jalodabhava was hiding under the water. So then Devi, taking the form of a Maina, took a little pebble in her feet, and then she threw it on the top of Jalodabhava, and with that mountain became small pebble became a mountain, and Jalodabhava was crushed and died. And that is the Hari Parvat mountain now, which looms on the landscape of Srinagar. That is the one.
Hari Parvat.
Hari.
Thank you.
And the temple of Sharika is there. Temple of Parvati as Sharika is there.
I see. Thank you. Now, your book chronicles a series of unfortunate happenings over a period of time. And the people were peace-loving, highly evolved, gentle, and erudite. And faith in their religion has been their backbone. The first-person account in your annexure of the book offers a glimpse of the barbaric madness of Kabaili Hamla of 1947. How have the Kashmiri Pandits still had undergone that pressure? How did they manage to survive that pressure over such a long period of time?
It was very, very difficult because you see, from 14th century onwards, as soon as Islam came in, within after one or two sultans, they started this whole thing of conversion, killing, breaking the temples, breaking the idols, burning the universities, and destroying the manuscripts and so on. But then, once the British rule came in, then Sikh rule and Dogra rule, that all stopped for a while. There was a stopgap for about 150 years. The people started again living peacefully. But in 1931, British themselves instigated the Muslim population against the Hindu Maharaja. Because Maharajas were Hindu, predominantly Muslim population was there, and they were instigated to say that you should not be ruled by a kafir ruler. The ruler is Hindu, he's not. So there was some kind of thing was started because British wanted some favor from Maharaja, which he didn't give at that time. So they started this issue. And so first time we had atrocities in 31, when people started looting the Hindu businesses, killing people, burning their houses and all that. Then again, we had the problem after the independence. The Jinnah wanted to take over the territory of Kashmir. And he tried to persuade Maharaja to join Kashmir. Maharaja was in two minds. He wanted to be independent like Nepal. And in that process, neither he joined India nor Pakistan. And its delay when delay was too much, the Jinnah got impatient. He sent his army in the garb of Afghani, militants, and they were in the front, and they were backed by the proper Pakistani army. And they attacked Kashmir. They entered from Baramulla side, and every village on the way, they killed all the Hindus. They burnt their houses. They did all kind of destruction. And that is the eyewitness account of a person who went soon after the destruction. He was a friend of my father. Now he's no more. He was living in America, and from there he has written this account, which I have put in an annexure of my book. So it was all very painful. A lot of people left in 1947 after the Kabyle, including my family left Kashmir in 1947. So that itself was a very, very sad thing. In fact, if they had taken over Srinagar, everybody would have been killed then. And one of the first persons to save Kashmir, I will say, is Biju Patnaik. Even before Indian Army arrived, he came in his private plane carrying 16 officers and soldiers from one of the Punjab battalions, and they killed the Kabylis who were there. They bombarded them from the sky, and that is how they did everything.
Thank you. The most intriguing part of your Kashmir Shaivism is the role of Adi Shankaracharya. Now, we in the South chant the Saundarya Lahiri, which Shankaracharya wrote after realizing the Mahatma of the Devi. And then we also read the Devi Mahatmyam. But we are probably unaware that because of a particular incident that happened in Kashmir when Adi Shankara was there. So could you tell us something about that particular incident which sparked the understanding of the Devi?
You see, when Shankara came here, he was very enlightened. He was the Advaita, but he did not know the power of Devi. He was not a knower of Shakti. He knew Shiva, he didn't know Shakti. So it is said that when he came there, his host was a lady, the sannyasis and all. She gave them all the ration and firewood and everything because they used to cook their own food. So she gave them everything and looked after them. But when she came in the morning, they had not cooked anything because they could not make fire. And she said, "You didn't make fire," and she just put a handful of water on the firewood and the fire lit. That time Shankara realized that Devi is teaching him something. He realized there is something called Shakti, and he doesn't know everything. He could not make fire, but this woman was able to make fire with the water. So it is said that he was very impressed, and he learned the cult of Devi in Kashmir. And then on the Shankaracharya hill, he wrote his Saundarya Lahiri there, sitting on the hill. And so it is the contribution from Kashmir, the Saundarya Lahiri, which we all, which is in praise of goddess. And if you see, there is also the Vardan of the description of the earring, long earring of goddess. It says that he got inspired from the long earring which Kashmiri women wear.
Oh, now, before we move on to your efforts for rebuilding of Kashmir, after this Article 370 has been released in Kashmir, I would, on a lighter note, move on to the social aspects and the customs that you people have. Which festival was your favorite and why?
So you see, 2 days back, the Yugadi, what we call Yugadi, it's called Navre in Kashmir. And this is the most favorite because this is like a spring festival. The winter is over, the first flowers come, first leaves come, the almond trees bloom. There's an almond blossom, like cherry blossom, and looks so beautiful. And people have picnics. They come out of the house, the winter is over. So they have open air picnics and all that. So that will be always most favorite because everybody wears new clothes, they get pocket money, they have a picnic, they go out. So that used to be always most favorite. And we were living in Delhi, so people in Delhi also used to celebrate it like that. And we'd all have picnic in Kotla Firoz Shah, between the ruins of those beautiful ruins of Kotla Firoz Shah.
Now, in your book, there is so much of boating that is happening. You have written that you just got off your house and got into the boat and went on to the Dal Lake. Did you consider boating there as mere transportation? For me, it sounds so ethereally romantic and beautiful. So I wonder what your take on that is.
See, that time the river was very important source of transportation. In fact, a lot of boats will come carrying rice from the villages to Srinagar. The roads were not well developed, but river was huge river. It carried big boats, and the logs from the forest were thrown into the river, and they will come to the sawmills in Srinagar floating. They'll come to the city. Hundreds of miles they'll float in the river and come. So it was a big means of transport also, but it was a beautiful boating down the 8 bridges. It was a very, those bridges got connected at some point of time with Dal Lake. So the tourists will take a shikara from Dal Lake, and then they may take a whole tour of city, boating down all the 8 bridges. This is beautiful. And I remember the people were so tourist friendly. Even my grandmother will stand on the window when tourist boats will go and wave or salute.
Now, to all married women in Kashmir wear the stick symbol of marriage, or have you all switched over to the Mangal Sutra that is popular in the north?
No, women are wearing both. They are wearing Mangal Sutras also because women like more jewelry. Many are now, a lot of intermarriages also. It's not all that. So, but still in Kashmir, in Jammu, and Delhi, people are still wearing. They're wearing. At least everybody wants it to get one at the time of marriage, but it's a solid piece of gold.
Now, I find that your book would require extensive research to be written with so much of authenticity and so much clarity. Were you able to read the translated version of Waqat Kashmir that you have mentioned? It was written in Persian in 1735 and subsequently translated.
Actually, I have given the list of books I have researched in my bibliography. I have not read the original, but this has been quoted by many of those authors, different portions, and I have taken from them.
Now, there are amusing surnames from the book that I noticed, which are very commonly used even today, like Khair, Raina, and Dhar. Are there anything, any amusing that you can add here?
There is actually khar, which means donkey.
Oh. Anupam Khair. Oh,
so this is, and the Rana actually is Rajanaika.
Oh, I see.
The title given to the very important courtiers, Rana. It is a short form of Rajnaik.
Nice.
So.
Because one of my earliest neighbors, as soon as I got married, was one wing commander and his wife, Dhar. They were from Kashmir and we were from the south. So they were my first neighbors. And she used to wear those long earrings.
We have some funny surnames, like, you know, we used to have a neighbor in Delhi called Sharabi. Now, Sharabi cannot be a surname in Delhi, but it's all right in Kashmir. And that man will be a teetotaler, but he'll be called Sharabi. This man got a job as a teacher in Delhi, and he had to change his name back to Kaul, because the administration told him, you're okay as a teacher, but if they change your name, we can't understand. Hridaynath Sharabi, working in the school in Delhi.
Very amusing how
Funny names, because
language.
They're not really surnames, they are like nicknames which people give each other.
Now, what is this vegetable, Thos Kaladar and Vasta Hale?
Vasta Hale is a kind of green. You know, when this new year comes, these new greens come, and this is little khatta, like cholai and all. No, it has got a little sour taste. So they cook it on that day. And Sokladar is actually a herb, which is good for health and gives you immunity. So that day it comes out from the water. It is a waterborne herb, and the people eat it as a immunity builder.
Oh, thank you. You have given us a beautiful idea of what Kashmiri Pandits, in the ones who have come out of Srinagar, are now attempting to rehabilitate their brethren. Could you give us your idea on the efforts of rebuilding of Kashmir as it was earlier through any of your ventures?
Now, that is an important venture. People are working, actually more so government is working on that, and more so Modi government, because it's a question of giving security to people, confidence to live, that they won't be again ill-treated or destroyed, or they buy a property, it won't be, burnt and pulled down. So the main effort is being done by government, but what PM has announced 6,000 jobs which are being now given, and that accommodation for those people who will do those jobs, so that some sizable number of people are going back and they are visiting temples, they are doing festivals there. So that is a beginning. Now, as more and more people are able to go, it will be. At the same time, government is coming heavily on terrorists also. In the process, our Jawans are also getting killed, which is sad, because the terrorists somehow want to create trouble. So it will take some time to stabilize things. But in the meanwhile, there are a lot of 30,000 people in refugee camps, and I'm working with them. I'm trying to educate their children. Youth are going to colleges in different parts of India. There's seats reserved for them. So we're trying to educate them. My aim is that nobody should be living in those camps anymore. They should all stand on their legs, whether inside Kashmir or outside Kashmir. But they should live happily, and they should have their own beautiful homes.
Correct.
In those tenements.
You have started this SECCT. Can you expand it for me, please?
Actually, it is already our family charities, Saraswati Educational, Cultural and Charitable Trust. Now we have started like SECCT, Vitasta Welfare Fund.
Yeah, Vitasta Welfare Fund.
It is particularly within the trust. This project is only for those people.
I see.
Vitasta Welfare Fund is totally going only for the people living in refugee camps, whether their children, whether their daughters' marriages, whether their illness, whether any of the things, whether ration, anything, what they need. It's more a humanitarian type of work. Emphasis on education. We also run a book bank. There are children who can't buy books, they are taking from there. We give textbooks to senior people. We are buying books for the people who are writing competitive exams so that they can prepare. We're conducting Zoom classes for them, mentoring for civil service. All that is going on. So we are emphasizing and getting them out of that ghetto, it's like a ghetto. Which is
that's a very noble gesture that you are doing. And I'm glad that you have given us the details of where to contribute to that particular fund, and also how anybody who contributes to that fund can also pick up a copy of the hardcover book. Ladies, all my friends in the Duchess, please note, there is a bonanza there. And not only is this book spellbinding, it is not only the origins of intellect of rishis from over 5,000 years ago, it has contributions from the Hindu and the Buddhist philosophies. It has rich pickings from Sanskrit, history, music, folklore, dance, sculpture, temple architecture. It is a sublime fusion of historical facts and one's own experiences that have been melded into this gripping saga. It is a must read for all history lovers. I find that the author is passionate about her culture, her beliefs, and is very proud of her Kashmiri heritage. Thank you very much, Chandrakanta ji, for your lovely, lovely book. In fact, I'm rereading some of the chapters to educate myself on the aspects of Kashmiri Shaivism, which appeal to me a lot. Thank you very much. Over to you, Anu.
Any questions from anybody? Any questions from anybody?
He never received any questions.
Yes.
Sujata.
I really wish that all Kashmiri Pandits make a plan and try to reach back to the valley to make our Kashmir again enriched.
One day Kashmir must become the Kashmir of old, the land of Vaishyava. Yes, we pray for that, Chandrakanta.
Ma'am, I have a question if I can interrupt.
Yes.
Really, ma'am, it is a pleasure to have read your book because my parents' origin is also Kashmir, and we have been, I am now living in Chennai, and my mother has gone through the times of Kabali And, those are the things which are there. She has been through, she was going down the Jammu Valley. My grandfather was working in the court of Hari Singh. You have brought back so many memories. And it is, sometimes you're getting those goosebumps when you read about how much it has tortured. And so it's been really touching to read how well you have chronicled it. I think for everyone who has been displaced out of that area, because we lost all our land, we had to sell things because of this article, before this article came in, and we couldn't own. So that used to be, I think, a thing that it was the Kashmiri thing which you could not own that land unless you were born there, and they had their own citizenship also. My father has a passport of, the passport which was issued from the Kashmir thing. It's a treasure. Is there any legend attached to the Char Chinari?
Char Chinar. Yeah, you see, Chinar is supposed to be the Devi, we call it Bhuvan. Bhuvan means Bhavani. So for us, the Chinar tree is the very form of goddess. So Char Chinar, it has 4 goddesses are there. And it's a beautiful island where we go for picnics. It is within Dal Lake.
Because I think now there are no Char Chinars left. The last time I went there were only 2 or 3 or something. They were not all the 4.
So that one might have got destroyed. A lot of destruction happened during this period when nobody is looking after these natural assets. They should be looked after.
And I think there has been an advent of Arya Samaj into the Kashmir Valley in Srinagar, because we did have a Arya Samaj school also, which was next to our house. And do you have any light to throw on that? How did it reach there, or it came from?
No, Dayanand Saraswati had his disciples everywhere, and even my father was a Arya Samaji. So I studied in Delhi in Arya Samaj school in Old Delhi in Chowdi Bazaar, and which was set up by the direct disciple of Swami Dayanand, Swami Sadanandji. Because that time old Delhi girls never studied. They were all merchants and Gupta, Agarwals and Jains. The girls were not educated. So the Shraddhanand got very, concerned if women of these very wealthy community are remaining not educated. So he had a school right in the middle of the bazaar in an old Haveli. I was inside a Haveli in the middle of the market, Chowdi Bazaar. So the girls could just walk out of their home with a mehri. One lady used to bring them from the home. So we had these mehris who used to bring us from our homes, and they started studying. But for that, these girls would have never seen the education. So Arya Samaj reached Kashmir, Arya Samaj reached Old Delhi, it reached everywhere. Swami Dayanand Shishyas, including Lala Lajpat Rai, he promoted it. During freedom movement, in Punjab and Kashmir, Arya Samaj became prominent during freedom movement. It was part of liberating yourself from the old dogmas and things, was to become a Arya Samaji and educate yourself and give up the dogmas and simplify the worship, go back to the Vedic puja, Vedic fire worship and so on.
Even there is a place, I think you have mentioned also, it has got a lot of roots in Ramayana also. So I do remember as a child passing by, and then they used to say, I thought, is it Kaikeyi, or I'm not remembering whose origins were actually there. She came from there, but I don't know whether it's Kaikeyi or who, there is a place which is devoted. It goes on the way to Anantnag or to Matan. And I do remember having the Kashmiri Pandits there. Our Pandit was also there. And we used to think they will be vegetarians, but they were all very non-vegetarian. The diet of a Kashmiri Pandit is not vegetarian.
You see, because they were Shaktas, and their original Shaivism was Shakta, Tantric type of thing. And you see in Tantric religion, there is Kali, there is animal sacrifice, used to be there. And so all these things were part of this one sect fully. That there was also a Vaishnavite sect, which was vegetarian, but which is smaller in number. And these people intermarried. So if a girl married into a non-vegetarian home, she'll mostly become a non-vegetarian. And if a girl from non-vegetarian home went to a vegetarian home, and she'll become a vegetarian mostly, unless she came back her home and quietly ate something. So this was there was not very strict this thing, but there was a small Vaishnavite stream also. And there used to be Vishnu temples also, though the Shaivite and Shaktaism and Tantrism was more predominant. That is why even the Buddhism, which went to Ladakh, has got a lot of tantric elements.
Oh, yeah, that's there. I'd like to request Ma'am Neena Reddy to please introduce some Kashmiri food into her Savera, because we died to eat it here and I'm not able to get it anywhere. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, that was planned for the hybrid meeting. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they had to cancel that. So let's hope we have another meeting shortly.
Okay, that would be lovely.
And I'll take all the help from you, ma'am, for it, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
There should be one. There's only one place where we get Kashmiri damalu. That is this.
Authentic Kashmiri fare.
Yeah, there's only one place which has it, which is strangely enough for South Indians. This is Signature, BB Signature. There, the damalu is authentic Srinagar, Kashmiri. That's it.
Which is that place?
BB Signature, madam. It's on Nungamakam High Road.
Okay.
It's Vasanta Bhavan Signature. The damalu over there is actually authentic damalu, made in curd with sofa and all those things which are there.
Okay.
Otherwise, they put onion, tomato, and all that, but that is not Kashmiri because we never grew onions and tomatoes there ever.
Yeah, no, we don't eat those.
I was just wondering, ma'am, whether we have any Dutches who are directly or indirectly related to these regions in Kashmir. So we could actually come together once, we're able to have physical meetings, to put together a couple of dishes. That would be wonderful to bring the members also together. We'll think about it. You gave us some food for thought, ma'am. Yeah.
Oh, I love to because I can, but not very well.
Ma'am, there's a question.
Yeah.
There's a question on the chat box which says that it's by Shobha Vartaman, where she says that apparently a German author has said that Christ died there in Kashmir. I mean, your views, or have you heard about it? So please tell us
It is
about
in the book. It is in the book. It's Srinagar. It's about
In the book.
Because there is a legend that Christ came when he rose from the dead. He didn't die. Actually, he never died at all. He went to Nidra. He was a great yogi, and that's why he rose out of the sleep after 3 days. And since everybody was in danger, he told all his disciples to disperse, and he also dispersed. In his younger days, he had already come to Kashmir. He had learned Eastern philosophy, so he came back here, and he lived in Kashmir. There was a Buddhist university at Hardwan. He was teaching there, and he taught there till his old days and died. He is buried there in a place called Rosabal. I've written about it in my book. And these descriptions are based on two accounts of two foreigners who had gone to Ladakh. In a monastery. They had read one manuscript which gave the story of Christ.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Looking forward to reading your book. And truly, I think Kashmir is a land of saints and of God, I would say, a valley of God.
We should all plan a visit.
Yes, I'm planning.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. It brings back memories of, we used to travel, I used to go to Delhi, and then my grandfather would get his car ready and we would all drive to Srinagar, and our car would be filled with just cherries and cherries and cherries. All I can remember about Srinagar is the car full of cherries, sitting with the Kashmiri family, having the drink that they give you, the kawa. Oh, yes, beautiful memories.
There's a movie which was made, ma'am, I think in 2020 by Vidhu Vinod Chopra called Shikara.
Oh, yes. My God, fantastic. Oh,
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That talks about the Kashmiri Pandits.
Yes.
Actually, Hamsa has raised the hand. Does she want to ask a question, Sujata? There's a raised. I don't know. She's raised a hand. Is it because she wants to ask a question?
She has
I'm
put it
not
up
able
on
to
the chat.
open my video.
Okay, I'm trying to open your video. Yeah.
Kanchipuram and Srinagar or something.
Hamsa, what name have you signed in as? Okay.
Hamsa only.
Hamsa Rani.
Hamsa Rani.
Hamsa Rani.
Yeah, please switch on your video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've asked you to switch on your video.
Hello, ma'am. Very interesting to read your book. It was like a history book actually. And I wanted to know, you had made a connection between Srinagar and Kanchi.
Adi Shankara.
Because these are the cities mentioned in very, very old literature. In fact, Kashmir
Yes.
is very old. They say when there was no Punjab, there was no or Rajasthan,
Yes, ma'am.
Kashmir was there. And the Kashmira Devi was there, which we worshipped in the south also. You know,
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
songs,
Mira,
Vasani and all that, ancient scriptural songs from Tamil Nadu. So many, many states in India were not there. Kashmir was there, Kanchipuram was there, Mylapore was there, Varanasi was there. These are very, very old cities of India. Srinagar was there.
Yeah.
And they say Srinagar, Kalidas got in dowry because he married the princess of Ujjain, and Vikramaditya was ruling Kashmir at that time. And he gave this city of Srinagar as a dowry to Kalidas, who married the princess of Ujjain. So this is also one legend we have. According
Okay.
to Kalidas was from Kashmir. And if you see some of the imaginary of Ritu Samhar and Kumar
Yes.
Sambhav, those landscapes are nowhere else in India, they're only in Kashmir. And everybody believes that he has written it there.
Okay.
Yeah, the how the Kumara was born and what was made, all those things, the
Yeah.
mountains. And so that entire thing is from Kashmir. And that time, a very bad, cruel ruler was there, and he left. And then he went to Ujjain and other places. And he came before he died. He died there. This is how we believe. It's our legend.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And another question, many girls, Kashmiri Pandit girls were married southern rulers in Mangalore. You had made a mention of that also.
yes, yes, that they migrated to Mangalore.
Migrated.
Mangalore is because of that.
No, it so happened that when they were first exodus happened, when the Buddhist king became a Muslim, and he forced everybody to become a Muslim, and many people left at that time. That was-
Yeah. Oh,
And many of them came to Mangalore. So one
yes.
team of people traveled through the India and found Mangalore very conducive because of hills and all that, and settled down there. They are the Saraswats, because Kashmiri Brahmins are Saraswats. So they are the Saraswats and God Saraswats of Mangalore. They see their origin to Kashmir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the information, ma'am. Enjoyed reading your book.
Thank you.
Rati wants to ask something. I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I remember my trip to Kashmir about 3 years ago. And at Srinagar, I found water everywhere. You know, it was that kind of a city. And Dal Lake, I found it so pristine and so calming. And definitely, I didn't find it dirty at all, though many people have complained that, you know, Dal Lake was dirty, but I didn't find it dirty at all. And the boat ride there was magical, you know, and I wanted to go back again for another boat ride, but then there was curfew and I couldn't, you know, go back. So I definitely would like to go back to Kashmir again. You know, the whole place is, you know, paradise on earth. I mean, I would say that. And really wonderful listening to you, ma'am, because I learned so much from you today. And we are hopeful that Kashmir will go back to its old glory. And I'm looking forward to reading your book very, very soon. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I think Sudha wants to say something. 1 second, sorry. Yeah.
Also, I think Saida also, I think was raising her.
Sure. After Sudha.
During
Yes,
my visit to Kashmir some 16 years ago, I think there was this garden from where there was a spring, and the water from there used to come for Indira Gandhi every day. Apparently, because it was so pure. I forget the name of the garden.
Chashme Shahi. That was
Chashme Shahi, yeah.
Not only for that, her father used to, water for Nehru used to come from that spring.
Okay.
Very
because it was absolutely pure and
absolutely beautiful spring water.
But does it still retain that quality?
Yes, because it comes from the under the ground.
From underground. Okay. Thank you so much.
Could Saida please speak? Saida?
I was just Khutarnak. I remember Kukarnag, which is there, which is actually, I believe it's the claws of a cock, which has made the springs, and the springs rise from there.
But
Like
that
very
is-
dark, there is a.
Yeah. That's a story. But Verinag is the origin of river with the Stajalam.
That's it.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a local story. They're beautiful places, Kokarnag and Verinag and all. They're beautiful places, most beautiful.
You make me want to go back. I'm going back this year. Come Corona, no.
You're lucky.
I want
Yeah.
to go back.
Pandemic or no pandemic.
Yeah.
Beeline to Kashmir, yes.
Saida, would you like to say
On my
something?
bucket list.
Yeah, they're talking to me.
Yes, do you have any question?
I don't have a question, but it's just a comment. And I'm just thinking, okay, whatever happened 400 years ago, all that is okay. But after independence, for something so huge to happen in 1991, what was the rest of the country doing? Every time I think about it, I think, how did we even allow something to happen in 1991? Oh, 47 and all, okay. There were so many factors involved.
The people were not told.
Yeah.
The rest of the country was not told. The media was quite muffled because there would have been riots in other parts of India. What was see, once you attack some community, that there were people in other parts of India which would have attacked the other minority communities. So it was government in their wisdom did not tell anything. We didn't have media like this, which is 24 hours going on talking about one single murder. So in certain way, probably it should not have been told, also not given that much importance. But it was shame because that could have been, those people could have been helped better. Actually, on that night, when this happened, that particular night, 19th of January, there was vacuum in the administration. The Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah had resigned. The Chief Secretary was our Musa Raza. He had proceeded on leave. And the governor was being appointed. President of rules was, the governor had yet to reach. It is that kind of vacuum when there is nobody, when people were seeking help, there was nobody to help them. So Farooq Abdullah was resigning because he didn't want Jagmohan to be appointed as governor. But in spite of that, against his wishes, they were appointed. So this is, it was a big political vacuum. And then that time, there was a political rivalry between Home Minister was Mufti Muhammad Saeed and Chief Minister was Farooq Abdullah. When they wanted to finish each other, in the process, the people got finished.
It's always the ordinary people who get pissed out in this whole thing, They're the ones who lose homes, who lose families. It's really terrible.
It's more.
But let's hope, ma'am, we really do hope that,
It's also Pakistan has to stop doing this, breeding this terrorism, like Taliban and Afghanistan. Afghanistan also is fully destroyed. Now Kashmir will get fully destroyed unless we, don't think Hindus suffered, Muslims also suffered who are there. What are they doing? There's curfew, there are no life, the children being forcibly taken and made into militants, sent to Pakistan. So many things. Do the parents want their children to become militants? Not. So all those people, every family has lost a member. It's just not at all. How can anybody be happy? So unless both the families come together, live again like olden days, there can't be peace. It is important that people go back. And it's important that they are welcomed and invited.
I wonder whether you read yesterday's paper that they've restarted building some of the temples in Kashmir.
Yes.
Yes, they have started. Yeah. Even, yes. Even the mayor of Srinagar, who is a Muslim, who is a lot of work to rebuild, because they have to do, he is there for everybody. He has to look after the assets of the community. So he himself went for the New Year festival to the Mahari Parvat. Mayor was there. And also the advisor to governor. They're both Muslim gentlemen. They were both there for celebrating at Parvat. But this is how we have been always. And then these external forces come. To tell you the truth, my father's wet nurse lost his wife. He was brought up by a Muslim wet nurse. He used to feed him. Because those days there was no baby food and all. You have to feed by some woman only. So if there was no, you didn't have mother, some other woman was a little baby has to feed you. So in Nepal, it was only a Muslim who volunteered to feed him. And so my father till the end, treated her like mother, and his daughter, her daughter as sister. So we had that kind of relationships with people. We survived because of each other. And then all this thing happened. It was very sad. In fact, every Hindu girl had a foster mother and foster father who were Muslims. For us, our boatman, my mother, when they go to Susral, when they go to in-laws' house, these people will accompany, because those days, parents could not visit their daughter's house. So only some other person. So a mature couple. In our case, it was our boatman who had boats moved to our house. They were the foster parents for all my aunts, including my mother. And they accompanied them to Susral. They also went once in a while to find out how the girls were doing. They carried them gifts, and they found out whether they wanted something quietly and gave them, because Susral those times was not an easy place to live with in-laws. And the girls used to be very frightened and small, and parents didn't know how to find. There was no telephones, nothing. Somebody has to physically see and come back. So these people used to go. So my mother had a foster mother who was very fond of. Every time she went to Srinagar, she carried gifts for Noori Amma, her foster mother. So there's an entirely different type of life we have seen, and it was different.
Excuse
Yes,
me.
Kala?
Yeah, I think Kala wants to speak. Yeah.
Namaskaram, ma'am. And this bit of information which you just now said is extremely touching, to know that human beings are basically good, and the religion just doesn't matter. And this is fantastic what we just heard from you. But what I wanted to know is how did Shankaracharya from Kaladi make it to Kashmir? I'm very curious to know how did this happen?
He went through whole of India, and he went to all the four cardinal directions. He went to Puri, he went to Dwarka, he went to Varanasi, and ultimately he came to Kashmir last. And then he went to Himalayas, he went to Kedarnath and Kedarnath. So he went finally to Kashmir, and there was a famous university there called Sharda Peeth.
Sharda Peeth, yeah.
And no southern scholar had reached there. And so he was the first southern scholar to reach there. They opened the southern gate for him.
Okay.
When there was a discourse and all, and they found him very knowledgeable, then he was given the, like we give university chair now, it's called the throne of Sarva Janapitha, all knowing. So he got to sit on that throne, and southern gate was opened for him. So that is here. This is the place also where he learned about Devi. I told you he had his knowledge, and it appears that at first time when he went to the Sharda Peeth and the image of Devi, that time also he was not believing. So the head of Devi started bleeding.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes.
Yes. So Shankara tore a bit of cloth from his dhoti, and he tied around her. And if you see Kashmiri women's dress, traditional Hindu women's dress, there's a white.
It's a band.
They say it comes from there. When Shankara tore his dhoti and tied around the forehead of Devi, because he didn't believe.
I take you. Wait. I also want to ask something.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I just want to add here, Kala. I think Shankaracharya traversed the whole of India twice, not once.
Okay.
Twice he went up to Kashmir and he came back. And he did all these small shlokas at every temple, which is the songs and chants which we are doing now.
Okay. Thank you, Sujata. Thank you.
Shankaracharya established the 4 mathas, Puri, and all those 4 maths were established by Adi Shankara only.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thing, which I must tell you, since we're in Shankara, from Sharda, which is the place of goddess Sharda. Now it is in Pakistan, from the Sharda Peeth University, where the temple of Sharda was there. I believe he carried the essence of Devi with him, and he brought it to Sringeri, and he established it there. The icon of Sharda in Sringeri is what was similar to what was in Kashmir, and that is why they call it Sringeri Sharda. And the Sharda comes from Kashmir. He brought with her the very essence of goddess he brought with him.
Correct, ma'am. That's why they say if you can't go to Kashmir, you can go to Sringeri.
Go to Sringeri. Yeah, that's the general idea.
Okay, can I take over? Sujata, any more questions or can I take over? Yeah. Can you all hear me? Because my connection was going little, yeah. First of all, I would like to say that this is a must-read book by each and every one. Like, I have not finished this book, but I have to thank you, Garyali ma'am and Pramila, for such an enlightening session. Like, I think we all knew Kashmir as a beautiful place, but knowing the history of Kashmir from 5,000 years, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. For me, it was something very new. Like, it is a combination, this book, ma'am's book is a combination of history, culture, architecture, beauty, spirituality, everything. And the way it is mentioned that it was a seat of all those Rishi, Munis and the scholars, like, you know, who came over there, and so much of literature, of course, many of it was destroyed by the invasions, but still lots have come down. Now, over here, I'll just quickly, I know it may be getting late, but I want to touch on one topic only in one chapter where ma'am has mentioned about the festivals and the ceremonies of the weddings. Like, we still follow those festivals, especially in Punjabis, like, you know, the Mehndi Ki Raat, and then the groom and the bride should not leave the house 10 days before, when all the festivities start off and all. But, like, you know, she has explained the meaning of those customs so well. Like, you know, now I feel we should follow those, which we just follow the glamour part of it. We don't follow them with the real meaning of those customs. Ma'am, it's amazing. Your book is amazing. I've not completed as yet, but it is a must read. And thank you so much for this session today. And Pramila, you really put it so well, and you summed up the book also so well. And at this point, I would like to say our Duchess Helping Hands would give a donation of 10,000 to the fund of the Pandits, yeah, in your trust. And those, as Pramila had mentioned, will again post the account details, and the book is available for just 500 rupees, which ma'am had priced for 1,500, I think. But she is, because these funds are all, whatever will be collected will be going towards the relief of the Pandits, all that good work which ma'am is doing. So girls, you should read the book. Because it's a lot of information. I don't want to say anything more. You all have heard all. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Pramila. And thank you, members, for being there. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. So much of
Thank you,
inspiration.
ma'am. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They leave